them
Did
waiting.
you make it down to SD?
I'm in San Diego. What a horrible idea leaving at a 5:30 a.m. flight is, though.
That's a love light. Good morning, everybody. We are going to let folks get settled in.
Yes.
We got a couple of people joining. Bassem, I hope you've been avoiding the lettuce recently.
I don't like lettuce. That's my upside. I don't like roughage.
And it's funny that it was just iceberg lettuce.
Yeah,
I
isn't that
think,
weird?
I don't normally eat like a lot of I don't really eat a lot of lettuce necessarily, but like for some reason, everyone talking about Taco Bell and iceberg lettuce really gave me a
I think the
craving
Taco
for
Bell
Taco
is like,
Bell.
yeah, maybe the problem is Taco Bell, not just the lettuce.
John Oliver did a great. And by the way, folks, get settled in. You haven't come in on a random meeting. We're filling some time for folks to get into their seats. John Oliver did a great piece on, like, of course it's Taco Bell talking about a big outbreak. That's how it should be.
Love it.
Well,
Love
awesome.
it.
Well, good. Well, we're hoping everybody here is happy and healthy.
Yes.
And enjoying their weeks, end of summer, getting back into the school year, back into the grind, getting ready for football season. The fall is coming. The year has flown by.
Yes.
Okay, so today we have a lot to cover. Bassem, It feels like we do these once a month, but it feels like every 3 months, like the landscape around technology and how people are thinking about AI changes completely.
Yeah, and I think it's so, I was just on with a CFO that's been in the business for 30 years, and it's actually being now full circle. When I started, we were talking about, like, I started old enough to remember that, CMIC, my first company I worked for, won Turner Construction because we ran on a Windows PC and they were trying to get off of Wang computers, right? And when you bought ERP in 1999, you bought all the modules and you implemented all the modules. And the dream was one big heavy piece of iron that solves every department. And then come Procore, best of breed, point solutions. Because you can't be all things to all people. That's what we said. Now, with AI, with the briq platform, with Otto, it's changing radically. It's shifting radically where they do want one vendor supplying their ERP, their CRM, and their project management in a way that is AI first. And so when I say full circle, and I think we're the legacy vendors, I'll probably not make a ton of fans on this statement, but the legacy vendors are just not going to be able to make the turn on this. It's just to AI enable Procore or Computeries and say, hey, you can be generative, you can be automated, you can be orchestrated, you can be conversation first. It's just not real. Like, Computeries can't have a chat surface like that. The thing, I don't even know what it was written in, right? So it's just, I think we're going full circle in a very round and very long-winded way of saying it else. I think we've gone full circle in that we were back to a world where no more best of breed. Choose a vendor like briq or Palantir or some of the other first class AI companies, and change your ERP, change your CRM, and change your PM. Not all at once. Do it as a journey. But that's what I'm seeing. It's the first time I've said this, probably on a webinar, but right now briq has about $200 million in construction volume under Project Genius, the world's first AI project management solution. And there's another 800 million coming. So Project Genius is going to have $1 billion since launch, replacing ACC and Procore. It's not huge, obviously, at this point, but it's getting there, and it's still in that early adopter stage. And I'll show it to you on the call. But we're blowing up the project management market. I mean, like, just the idea that you spend 10 basis points on something that looks like it was written in 1999 is psychotic. Actually psychotic.
Yeah. It's really finally the technology catching up, because this has always been the goal. And actually, the topic today is one that, Bassem, we hear all the time
Yep.
from construction companies, which is, get this thing out of the way, which is, we have all these new people joining, we
Yep.
have veterans leaving, there is no institutional knowledge, there's no brain. And I think a lot of companies have been fighting with these legacy software systems of record, to
Mhm.
try to be that knowledge base. And today we're going to talk about why that's not possible.
Yeah.
And in order to build that, why you need something that's AI native. Really quick, before we jump in,
Mhm.
we have been circulating a survey leading up to today.
That's true.
And the big reveal, Bassem, is we're going to vote on answers to this survey, to this question, which is, what's the one thing you wish AI actually understood about your job? It's a great way to
Love it.
set up the conversation we're having today. So, Stephanie, if you could please drop that into the chat. It's a Google form. Submit your answer. We have some answers already. At the end, we're going to put the top 3 and we're going to vote on the ones we like. The winner gets a $100 gift card. It's pretty
Love
easy
it.
money.
I love it.
Bassem, I saw your 12 responses. We had to cancel those out. You mentioned, so we talked about like kind of the evolution, and like, let's talk a little bit about the generational shift that's happening here, Bassem.
Yeah.
You brought up this photo, which I think explains kind of what's happening in the industry today. What are we looking at here?
Yeah. So this is Machu Picchu, and I think this photo, I love Graham Hancock. We won't get into Ancient Apocalypse, but this photo, I think it says it all. If you've ever been to Machu Picchu, the construction on the first 3 levels there, that's the original construction. That's the original construction. That was first. And you can't even put a credit card between those bricks. And if you look at the craftsmanship, and I don't know if you can zoom in, do you see in the middle stone, Ellis, in the base of that wall, there's kind of an L-shaped one, a little bit down. It looks like the notching. They did notching, and it fits together perfectly. It's almost too perfect. It's amazing. So perfect. People think aliens created, but and then that's the next generation above it. That's how they repaired the wall. How did the people that started the wall? How were they so much better than the people that built on top of the wall? I'll tell you, it's because, other than the aliens, it's because the knowledge transference of the craft in construction is notoriously bad. This is what we're going to end up getting. There, if anybody's seen Idiocracy, like in 100 years, our building's just going to be leaning up against each other. We're wondering how we actually built it. And I'm of Egyptian descent. If I walked into Egypt right now and said, rebuild the pyramids, they would look confused. So there is a point where you have to say, this isn't new to this generation, that it's scary. And I think the craft is changing. And I don't think you have the right knowledge management procedures to make the craft continue forward and forward. Now, this is an interesting example because that building is built by one. They probably didn't have multiple construction companies. Now, take this problem and take it across 60,000 companies in North America, 80,000 companies. So how the hell are you going to get generation 2 or 3 or 4 in your company to be able to not be the guys throwing rocks or stacking rocks like that?
I mean, at the end of the day, you made a good point. This is not unique to today's generation, but like, there's a leaky bucket here, and it's not just people leaving, veterans. They call it the silver tsunami. Veterans leaving the industry. It happens all over the place. Wherever, anytime some type of information or knowledge is exchanged, it's leaking out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we relied on learning management systems or training of the new generation. And that's a very expensive department that you need to create. I want to give you an example of why the bucket leaks and why LMS doesn't solve it. In order to create training material that will train the individual on the craft on how to do their job. Because it's not natural, you have to stop. You hire somebody that makes a course. That person doesn't know anything about the craft. So they have to talk to a subject matter expert to take the course. Now you're dealing with 2, 3, 4 broken telephones. You're literally, and the experts aren't in the room. And so what ended up happening is we ended up creating this massive cost structure at huge companies and mid-sized companies trying to train the craft. And I don't want to offend any LMS folks in there because they do a great job, but the odds are stacked against them. The knowledge, that the signal for the noise isn't there. So you create a lowest common denominator course. And then, as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. And then you're in the field and you get hit in the face. And so the idea here is people leave, jobs change, time moves, and worst of all, we don't create a manufactured product in construction. There is no assembly line. So you're not hiring the next generation to use the weld or install a panel, which is easier. When Ford has somebody retire and they bring somebody else in, they take training for a week and then they know how to put the panel in their job, or put the dashboard in, put the radio in. That's not what we do. And we've made it even worse, not to make everybody sad, but Ellis, every department in construction works as a separate business.
Yeah. If you ask, to your point, like if you ask, the same question, like what does a good job look like to, 5 different people, you get 5 different answers
100%.
Across the business. And I think,
and I'm going to say one thing. I think when they say what personal bias is what's going to hit it. The CEO is going to say, oh, that job, I talked about it at my country club. It's so cool. I built that stadium. And the CFO is the job that didn't lose money as far as he can tell or she can tell. And the estimator is like, it's a great job is one that nobody yelled at me. Right. And so it's not only will we get a different answer, it's going to be colored with the bias of my opinion. It's like watching Fox News and MS Now. They can produce a show about the same topic and then add in Newsmax, and it's like crazy, crazier. All of it's just going to be a different point of view.
Yeah. And it's the, it's the handoff of from each team where the knowledge decays. And like, here's one way that I like to think about it is if you think about this and like of what actually happens when knowledge is transferred throughout, whether it's across teams or within teams or even on a project, there's some kind of signal, whether it's a conversation, a phone call, an email, some document is sent, some mechanism of transferring information. Yeah. And then what happens is someone has to capture that. Most of the time that gets captured in somebody's head. And you meant to your point earlier with kind of form-based legacy software is those were meant to record when it happened. Most of the time, everyone knows this, that stuff doesn't make it in, or it gets put into a software form that is, it's in a document and it just gets uploaded as a PDF. And so if somebody has to go retrieve that information and recall this, they're either having to scour a document, read through some knowledge base. They have to go, walk across the office or make a phone call. But again, those conversations will get stored. You can see at each point here, the actual knowledge that the business retains diminishes significantly until finally you get back to the feedback loop. And let's say you start a new job and all of those learnings from the previous job or from working with this previous subcontractor or previous customer get lost. And the cycle just repeats itself. It's this terrible loop.
I'm going to give you 2 very, very clear examples. I see folks that are on this call in the executive seat. So I'll give you 2 clear examples. Construction is in the risk transference business. That's what construction is. And you get subcontractors to transfer risk to them. And you get folks to transfer risk to you. And it's a big risk game. Let's call it what it is. When I go and try to find a subcontractor, if I'm lucky, I know how many contracts they've done with me in the past, if I'm lucky,
Hmm.
and how much they've had under contract with me. But that's it. That's all I know. With Otto, I know every permit they pulled in the last 6 months and how much work they have with everybody else. That is that it's not a small, like Ellis, I cannot stress enough. That's not a small microcosm win. That's like the biggest win a company could ever have in the history of time. What projects did they pull permits on? I now know with no extra work that subcontractor has done work in affordable housing or market rate. Because when you pull the permit, there's an address. That address is something physical. The idea here is you would do that if you had unlimited amounts of time, but you don't. So not only is the knowledge you're talking about here, which is perfect, which I call closed loop knowledge, which we're failing at that in construction. The closed loop is like what's inside my wall. My ERP system, my CRM, my project manager. Marketing wants to know how many square feet a project is so they can propose it. Use it as a project sheet. That's the closed loop, and we suck at that. Now you go to open loop, where you don't own the source of the information, and it's astronomically worse. And then we wonder why companies go to, it's us in restaurants. It's a lot sexier to own a restaurant. Don't open up a construction company unless you solve this, because that's why construction companies disappear every day. Closed loop and open loop knowledge loops are massive issues, and nobody wants to talk about it, and nobody wants to solve it. When I pick up the phone, I get to do a demo, I talk to a prospect, I'm talking to the owner of P&L. I want to solve my accounting problem. I want to solve my business development problem. It's like, you got to solve your company's problems. And I think we're finally at the stage where AI can do that for you. That's a very, very big mental map shift. It's not, they put down their flag and said, this is my fiefdom. I own the business development process. I own operations. I own accounting. No, you don't. You own part of that company. And that's the big difference.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, you talk about the relay race where we use this analogy a lot where it's, what is it? Everyone's got hands on an elephant and describes
like touching the elephant.
Different parts of the elephant and describing something different. Yeah. I mean, this is, and this is like really like an organization thing too, but especially in construction, as you mentioned, where everything the product is one of one every single time. That is a uniquely difficult problem to solve. We're not, stamping out Hot Wheels in a manufacturing facility,
right? And
El Segundo. And I will say here, and we're going to kind of get to the how you solve this after this slide, Bassem.
Yeah.
But it is important to say that companies, if you're a construction company and you're around today, you're successful, right? Everyone's succeeding in their own silo. The problem is you're leaving money on the table, burning people out. Good luck hiring talent as well in an environment like this. And you only see 20% of the picture. So from the idea of, okay, what is the central source of truth? And it's not the system of record. There has to just be one arbiter of truth in the business.
It can't be. You have to be very, very clear on this, that the truth in ERP and the truth in PM and the truth in CRM are all different truths. They're all versions of the truth. I don't think anybody's maliciously lying, but the reality is that when humans are asked to explain history, they misremember and sometimes lie. And that's the big difference. The arbiter of the truth needs to be a run silent, run deep AI model that looks at everything and creates a mental map for that person or for that organization. Unfortunately, you got to seed the brain of your company to AI. I know that sounds very, very, very scary. You're still at the wheel. But the basics, forget the term AI, the basics of machine learning is that, when you do machine learning, you don't go in and say, hey, Joe, where do you think this is going to end up? It's like, well, it's going to end up here. Okay. And then that's your machine learning. The machine learning is that you have to read unstructured data. It must be the unstructured data. It cannot be the cleansed data. It can't be when as soon as the human touches it, the bias begins.
Yeah.
So it has to be the invoice. It can't be the cost coding that Jenny or Johnny keyed into computeries, right? It has to be that information, and then you have to be able to see the life of it. What happened next and what happened next. We ended up in a claim. Why did we end up in a claim? Cause and effect. And this is like a pretty heady topic, and it's not like the usual topic we talk about, which are usually a lot more fun. But this is like a shake the baby moment. Like, stop. Like, you gotta figure out that stop shaking the baby. You have to figure out where versions of the truth exist that are actually hurting your company. And I'll give you a great example. It's something just as easy as proposals. Many large companies have a proposal generation team that have never worked a day in their life in construction. Never. Their job is to use pretty pictures in InDesign. And they rely on data that maybe sits in Cosential or Salesforce or some 1998 system, or worse, in SharePoint, unstructured. And then they are left to their own devices to create the thing to win business. And people come to us and say, how is AI going to improve my win rate? You start off by saying, fire the proposal generation department. And they're like, well, why would we? Who's going to do it in InDesign? This deck, tell the truth, Ellis, that this very pretty deck was not hand coded by you.
No.
Design is not a job anymore.
No.
Like that's the problem. Like, people aren't getting it. So once you take the human element out of the proposal generation, the magic, they're always like angry proposal people. I just need InDesign connections. Dragging pictures in on a deck. You go back to the studs. What do you need out of a proposal? I need to know who should be proposed that have the right match to this so that my win percentage will go up. I need to know what project history I should expose. I need to know what my competitors are saying about me. And I need to know what will close the deal for me. That information lives in 5,500 systems at your company and has nothing to do with that person that sits in the swivel seat that knows how to use Adobe. So I think that there is this fundamental shift away from the knowledge being in a silo and into a world where people really, really need to have this one arbiter of the truth.
Yeah. And I think the point here is that, and this is really important to understand, is that record management is not knowledge management.
That's right.
Just because you have, some estimating tool or a CRM and you're tracking opportunities in it, doesn't tell you if you're going to win that opportunity. If you have a database of prospects that you want to go after, it doesn't tell you which prospects to go after and why and how to pitch to them. And so, like, there's this, and I think this is really to build this company brain that everyone really wants to do and has wanted to do for decades, is that you have to rethink what knowledge actually is. And to your point, Bassem, it's not querying a table. It is taking in synthetic. It is taking in conversational data, PDFs, drawings. The ability just to take in all of this unstructured data and information and actually do something with it is what and result in an action is what knowledge management really is.
Yeah, and here's Otto building a proposal, right? That proposal is built off of knowing what's in the proposal document, right? So the RFP comes in, we understand what styles we want, then we understand what people we want to propose, then we understand what projects we should highlight. What's the power here? Yeah, we do a great job. Like our model does an amazing job at coding design, like incredible job. An incredible job of coding it. You can prompt it, ask it for a different look and feel. You can talk to it and you can say, hey, I don't like the way this looks. I want something like this. Can you please give me a better idea? It also builds the strategy and the plan. past relevant performance, it knows better than you. It will know better than you as an end user. You'll never know, where how many signals had to be analyzed to say, you know what, Sneaker Street is the one that we should be highlighting here. And I think when you start to realize, wow, this isn't about a person filing. I mean, here, Ellis, 50 years from now, we're going to look at many jobs the way one of my first jobs my dad gave me in the summer was called filing. You remember that? Oh, you're too young. Literally, they're
I
like,
remember filing. I remember filing.
That was a job, Ellis.
Yeah.
It was a $5 an hour job. It was great.
I never worked. I never had the opportunity as a career path to be a filer, but I'm aware.
Yeah. And for those that are also too young to remember, we took like stacks of paper and like put them in other things, other pieces of paper. Like that's what the job was. In 50 years, the proposal generation job is going to have been seen as a filer. That's crazy. The guy or girl who manages RFIs is a filer. That's it. That's all they do. They file. That's all they do. And like, you're now looking at a world. Oops, let me make this bigger. You're now looking at a world where Otto is your filer. When you talk to Otto and you're like, hey, can you help me out? It's like, it's understanding what you're asking. These are all the things you can do to Otto on the command prompt, right? Kind of throwback to MS-DOS days. But all of this is available here. It's, even the idea of like flowing a project, asking Otto, how do I set up a project? Well, you set up a project based on your playbook at your company. And we're going to get to the point of what the playbook is in AI. But this is your playbook. It's a simple one. I mean, this is a demo database. But give me a project name, upload the budget, upload the contract. Think about what you do at your company today to set up a project. Think about that. You get a project number, you call accounting. It's like an act of Congress. You got to link it to your CRM. It's all insane. So if I'm the project manager and there's approvals, yes, I know the CFOs on this call are like, oh, they can't tell you a number. Yes, there are approvals and controls and all of that fun stuff. But if I'm the project manager and I decide to talk to Otto or just simply /command, I can start building a project in real time. And why does it know this is the best practice for building a project? It's because of all of the knowledge you've consolidated from these other raw data streams. That's the key.
Yeah. And I think let's talk a little bit about the category of this, because I think everyone, when they think about technology, they think about, oh, I need a CRM and I need, maybe I have some kind of automation tool. And I think it's important to mention that you mentioned earlier in the webinar, coming back full circle.
Yeah.
Where it's not, you don't have a system of record that you pay for and some workflow automation tool that you pay for and some intelligence layer that sits on top of this whole stack. It is one thing. And I think if folks can take away one thing from this call, is that where you store the data, how you action the data, and then the intelligence on that data today is one thing.
Yes. And yes, and the data that gets forced into rows and columns in your accounting system actually obfuscate the truth. And I'll give you the most basic construction example. I'm in the field and I have a change request and I don't have the scope of work or cost code on this job. So I'm going to take out a 99,000 series cost code, 99000. On my job, 99000 is repaint this room. On your job, 99000 is lay new concrete. And then somebody else's is a field condition. And then you force fit that into your accounting system, it gets billed and paid. What is 99000? What did you learn from 99000? You didn't. You've completely obfuscated the truth, because in order to enter something in Vista, you need a row called cost code. And you don't know what cost code, so you just shove it anywhere. The most basic idea, that's the most basic loss of knowledge. But it's the highest risk intersection. The reason why I use that example is companies make or lose money on change orders. You don't make or lose money on base contract. So if I don't know for the next job what 99000 was, I'm going to relive it again, relive it again, and relive it again. That is some of the most important messages that we can transmit today. What you're doing now is keeping you in business, keeping the lights on. What you're going to do tomorrow is thrive. Because when you really look at the intersection of that 99000, an operations manager will go, Bassem, I know what that is. I see the RFI. I see the field work directive. I see the subcontractor. I see the back charge. I see all that. And then that VP goes and takes a job at Turner, and he's gone. And he doesn't see any of it. So that idea here, or he wins the lottery, or she wins the lottery, and they're gone. And so who knows now? And you're like, it's like a Twilight Zone episode, the guy with the glasses, like going through different boxes trying to find the answer. And the fact that Iron Mountain makes so much money off of construction is shocking. But the idea here is that that raw data needs to be here. And I don't care if you scan it in, for God's sakes. Doesn't matter. It's just going to process anyway. So that's
Yeah. And I think one of the key things here, if I were to just kind of say like kind of three things that I think folks should think about here is, one is absolutely reduce your data entry friction. But more importantly than that even is, let's see here. Let me do a share real quick. More importantly than that even is capturing data passively. And I think people underestimate this as like, especially with the technology that's available in AI today, is everyone thinks that, I have to have it in a row and a column.
Yeah.
I don't.
Imagine if TikTok worked the way construction worked.
I mean,
scroll through, and then at the end they go, "What did you look at?
Yeah.
Can you tell me everything you looked at? Just put that in a spreadsheet. And then also tell me how long you looked at that post in a spreadsheet, and then send that to me once a week."
Yeah, exactly.
And how great would that TikTok competitor be?
Exactly.
It's
it would be impossible to run. And obviously, so that means like investing in AI first software, AI native stack. We'll talk a little bit about that. Here's what you don't want to do, Bassem. Okay, so everyone's thinking, okay, I know I want to use AI. I know I need a better way to action on this data that I have and to make better decisions, yada, yada, yada. There's two things that we see companies do that are going to fail. And like, all these reports come out and all these pilot projects on AI are failing. It's not because the technology is not good. The technology is excellent. It's how you apply the technology. We call that field applied AI.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the two things that we see companies trying to do today that actually really are going to muddy the waters on success.
I'll give you a great example of one of our clients, early Project Genius clients. He was using Claude to answer questions about specifications. And he said, "Oh, it's great. I love it." And I said, "Well, we'll talk in a week." Comes back and he goes, "I didn't realize this, but Claude only processed 100 of those pages, and sometimes not even 100." And so he goes, "Well, it answered questions, and then sometimes it hallucinated, just made shit up." And you're like, well, because Claude is Claude is a general purpose AI model. It could write code, and you can go to the command prompt in Claude code, and it'll write code that will read all 1,700 pages. But then you have to stage it and know how to write code. And by the way, you need a microservice for that. And so you have to know how to deploy a microservice. Oh, and by the way, you have to understand what chunking is, what a manifest is, what a markdown file is. Oh, and by the way, you need to have uh, different layers of markdown files so Claude can answer those questions. Oh, and by the way, you have to create your own document management tool at Claude Code. And oh, by the way, you have to know how to deploy them securely because you're on a DoD job. Oh, and by the way, other people at your company need to also be able to access. So you need an auth system. Oh, and by the way, when that document, because you don't know anything about security, gets leaked to the internet, you're fired and sued and will never get another job with that company again. You're going to take that risk? Insanity.
Yeah, and I always say it's the way you use AI as a consumer, as an individual, is not the same way that an enterprise should use AI. They are completely different animals. And the other thing that can happen is, let's say you have everyone using their own ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever. Suddenly, you have the same problem that you had with data silos with legacy software, is that everyone's using their own version of the truth.
Yep.
And no one has visibility into that. And talk about security, none of that data gets shared. You're defeating the purpose, actually, of
and AI
using
is
AI.
sycophantic. LLMs are sycophantic. So
Yes.
if they know I have a bias, they're going to feed into my bias.
Mm-hmm.
Your bias is different. So a ChatGPT, which is not account-based, or a Claude, which is not account-based, even if you go on an enterprise license, that structure is still biased by the individual of which they use it, not the company's bias. And company bias needs to be based on unstructured data, properly indexed, so that the right job is won next time.
Yeah. And maybe we could talk a little bit about applied AI. We're kind of coming up on time here, but I do think it's important to cover this concept. And maybe we'll do a webinar on this next. Folks might be hearing this concept, applied AI. Can you define what that space is?
Yeah. So applied AI is the new burgeoning group of companies like briq that may have come like briq. We came from robotic process automation, which is like bots, to applied AI, which is we're taking AI toolkits and we're building platforms for that. And what that means basically is, we use Claude, we use ChatGPT, we use Kimi, Minimax, we use all the foundational models, but we're putting it together in a novel way to sell that package to a user. Applied AI is similar to web-based software. I think that's the best. Applied AI is taking AI so that you can use AI and use it at scale, securely, safely, and orchestrated and conversation first, and understanding all of that stuff. So the idea behind applied AI is you can try to create applied AI in-house, and people are attempting to write their own products. Most people are in that kind of trough of disillusionment of like, wow, it breaks a lot, or software is hard. The idea here is that we've only really removed the engineer from the mix. We haven't removed the infrastructure, the sysops, the security. Like there's a lot more than just writing code when you deploy software. But applied AI is basically outsourcing your AI strategy. The other thing that I think is important about applied AI is that it is a package of people and product. There are forward deployed engineers at briq that configure. A lot of it is now automated, but that do configure the UX, that do configure the workflows underlying, so that you get what you want specifically built for you. Now, of course, there's a base model, right? So we have a base ERP model, we have a base PM model, we have a base CRM model. Those base models are great, but most people have a lot of configuration on top of that. And so that applied AI is the idea that AI has now opened up the door to get a completely unique enterprise solution deployed into your organization, without having to vibe code it yourself, or basically ensure your own software. That's kind of the key here.
Yeah. And I think, we can talk a little bit about, I want to leave some time for questions if folks have questions, and we'll do the poll reveal here at the end. But I think it's important to mention, we might have glossed over this. The tools that applied AI are building are replacing legacy project management, CRM, and ERP software.
Yeah. I
it
mean,
is doing the record storage, doing the systems of action, and doing the systems of intelligence which is
Yeah.
exactly what we've been talking about today.
6 months ago, we were a co-pilot too. And we'd go in and say, hey, we're going to make Procore look better, or we're going to make ACC look better, or we're going to make computer ease look better. And we're going to put bots on top of those things. And today, we don't need to do that. It's today, your company needs a makeover. We'll be the plastic surgeon. Like, the idea here is trying to make a system that was written 25 years ago, AI enabled, can get you a little bit of the way, but can't get you all the way. And, you see it in these acquisitions that these companies are making that are very, very like frantic. They're buying things that they think fill the hole on this issue, when the fundamental problem is the architecture of which their software is built. So that is why we are very, very dedicated that Accounting Genius, Project Genius, and Lead Genius replace a Salesforce, a Procore, and a Computer Ease or Vista. We're going for it 100%.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Opening up for questions. I mean, Bassem, obviously, like, common questions are like, what does this actually look like? Maybe talk a little bit about how kind of Otto is structured and the products on top of that. And like,
sure,
how do you start? Like, what do you, if you want to replace the ERP or the PM, like that's a big undertaking. How does this kind of start?
Start with one bite at a time, one project at a time, one proposal at a time, one department at a time. That's the nice thing about AI, is that it's very modularized. Start with AP, start with AR, start with payroll workflows. That's fine. That's how you get to that journey. You're going to have to connect to your old systems during that journey. So I think the way you start is that you don't look at it as I need to solve one micro problem. I need to solve a flow, like onboarding of an employee to offboarding and everything in between, including time capture, training, productivity. That's a real meaty problem. You might start too small and just do a little thing. That's a problem too. So look at it as a flow. Now, the flow then becomes part of the story of the playbook. What corporate history, unstructured, do we have besides urban legend to build out the playbook for your company using our tools? We didn't get into it much, but estimating genius and proposal genius are two of the most important concepts, because this is where you win new business. How does a person that's worked here for 1 hour and a person that's worked there for 10 years produce the exact same quality proposal, produce the exact same quality estimate, no mistakes? You do that by having that playbook implemented and having the arbiter of the truth be the AI to say, this proposal is poorly written, doesn't meet our standards, and not just because of a rule book, but because it can point back to 1,000 proposals that were in SharePoint and look at every win you've ever had and say, proposals that look like this have a higher win rate. That's, machine learning and knowledge management. They used to call them knowledge bots, robots that learn. That's how you change your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Bassem, we've actually gone over time here. I know you're on the road. We have pulled the winner out. Stephanie, if you could, let me see, we could put him in the chat. Let's see here. Let me stop sharing here. Let's see. I always love a good survey, Bassem. Who doesn't love a survey?
The power of a live show.
I know. Let's see here.
We might have to send an email afterwards.
Goodman Home Solutions. What was the response? Stephanie, did you throw that in there as well? It was funny. I actually, prior Bassem to the, I think this is good for folks to see. I think everyone's kind of, it's good to hear what people are thinking about in the industry, right? Prior to the event, we circulated this poll. Here are most of the responses that we got. Okay. A lot in operations.
Yeah.
A lot of people in operations. A lot of people complaining in the field.
Yeah, I'm really looking here. That's great.
But I'm not surprised that a lot, what's one thing that you wish I knew about your job? The answer from our winner today: I wish AI better understood that most of my job is connecting things that look unrelated. Operations, people, technology, finance, customers, and strategy all affect each other. The hard part isn't knowing the answer in one lane, it's seeing the downstream consequences across all. I mean, that's why we picked this one. It was literally
well written, because putting a co-pilot on a spec document doesn't solve for that equipment being recalled or discontinued. That's being spec'd. That is the biggest differentiator right now. That is a great response. You earned your $100.
That was, by the way, Caleb Clem from Goodman Home Solutions. So
that was awesome.
Caleb, if you're in the webinar, we'll reach out and get this to you. So really thank you and to everyone for submitting those. It's some good responses. Awesome. A little more than the 32 that was listed here. Well, hey, exciting times, Bassem. Continued safe travels.
Thank you so much.
We hope this was insightful for everyone. If you want to learn more about Otto and what we're doing in this platform, highly recommend reaching out to some folks on the team. I know a lot of folks here are speaking to people at Briq. Love to show you more. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great rest of the summer. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.